In honor of Lord Ramachandra's appearance day coming up very soon, the topics that we're discussing of late is in relation to Lord Ramachandra's activities, the Ramayana. And it was my choice. I selected this topic, Vibhisana's surrender. Lord Ram accepted Vibhisana's surrender at Tirupalani. Tirupalani is a place that we visited during one of our South India yatras. And it's a celebrated place, just called the place of surrender. And the painting shows floating in the sky up there with his palms folded is Vibhisana. Behind him, there are Vibhisana's 4 ministers. And of course, next to Ram is Lakshman. And Sugriva, I assume it's the monkey with the beard because he's a little elder. And some other monkey, not necessarily Hanuman, but also receiving Vibhisana's surrender. It's a very nice place. Those of you that may have visited or have the opportunity to visit Tirupalani, I'm sure you'll like it. The mood of the place, the Leela of the place is where others also surrendered to Lord Ramachandra and Lord Ramachandra accepted their surrender. So I'm going to go back to an earlier stage of the Ramayana, specifically Govindaraja's commentary on Balakanda. See, the history of Sri Vaishnavism has an interesting portion. We'll take a look. Jamunacharya, who was the guru of Ramanujacharya, extensively studied and wrote on Ramayana, and he gave those extensive teachings to Sri Shailapurna. And Sri Shailapurna gave those teachings to Ramanujacharya. It's a wonderful story of how that happened. And then following Ramanujacharya, the 8 cardinal teachings of Ramayana, and of course expanded besides just a list of 18 teachings, were passed on in disciplic succession. And Govindaraja is in that disciplic succession. And in the commentary of the 5th Sarga of Balakanda, he spells them out, these 18 cardinal teachings. Now, who is Govindaraja? Many, those from ISKCON at least, may not have heard of him. Sometime, the time of his life is not clear, but scholars have ranged it from 1227 to 1500 AD. He was in Tirumala, and he was instructed in a dream by Balaji to write a commentary on Ramayana. He was a very gifted scholar and very learned in the scripture and learning the teachings and incredibly humble. So in his introduction to this Ramayana commentary, he says, I've not written anything original, I've just gathered from previous teachers. Of course, the previous teachers go back several centuries. But his commentary is most celebrated as comprehensive of all the commentaries of Valmiki Ramayana. And in these 18 cardinal teachings, very central is the teaching of Sharanagati. In fact, in general, the Sri Vaishnavacharyas accept Ramayana is a treatise on Sharanagati. I'll say it again. Ramayana is a treatise on Sharanagati. Sharanagati is a teaching, and how to do it is illustrated profoundly and profusely in Ramayana. So, therefore, Vibhishan surrender is the topic that I selected as a very exemplary of the whole of the Ramayana, the life of Lord Ramachandra. In the life of Lord Ramachandra, in the birth of Lord Ramachandra, came when the demigods appealed to Vishnu, appealed to Brahma, and Brahma appealed to Vishnu to please appear on earth in a human form to check Ravana and the Rakshasa race, because they had received boons, benedictions from Brahma, that they were unstoppable. Vishnu had to personally come. A little bit about Ravana. How do we speak about Ramayana without speaking about Ravana? Ravana, his name previous to Ravana was Dasagriva. Dasagriva, because he had 10 grivas, or 10 necks, or 10 heads. And the name Ravana was given to him by Lord Shiva because of a pastime I'm sure you're well aware of. When Ravana, who is pictured down below, went to Mount Kailash and wanted to see Lord Shiva, he was checked by Nandi, and he insulted Nandi, and he insulted Lord Shiva, and he started to pick up the whole of Mount Kailash with his 20 arms, and Lord Shiva simply placed his big toe on the mountain and crushed the arms of Ravana. And Ravana, having been born in a Brahmin family, or of a Brahmin father at least, we'll see that shortly, he had much learning in the Vedas, and he knew many stories or songs and hymns from the Vedas, so he sang them for 100 years. And Lord Shiva became pleased with his supplication. He lifted his toe. Ravana removed his 20 arms, and he was roaring in pain. Thus the name Ravana was given. And he had a brother, or a stepbrother, who later became Kuvera, and his name was Vaishravana. Instead of roaring terribly, it was hearing distinctly. Here's the family line, the lineage. There's Brahma at the very top. And one of the sons of Brahma was named Palastya Muni. Palastya Muni became married to the daughter of another sage, Trinabandhu. And from their combination, Vishrava, very, very elevated, very, very capable, very, very saintly personality, was born. He later became married to the daughter of Bharadraj Muni, and Vaishravana was their son. And later, without the details because of time, he earned the position or the title of the treasure of heaven, Kuvera. Now, I don't know how much time I'll have because an hour passes quickly. It's already 15 minutes into the hour. There was a second wife, Kaikashi. Kaikashi, as you see here in the chart, I hope you can see in the chart. Is it clear on your screen there? Okay, good. She was the daughter of two Rakshasas, Raksha and Rakshasa and Rakshasi, Sumali. Now there's a very detailed story, Sumali, and how it came to be that he was married to Ketumati. But Sumali wanted to have a son that would overrule or surpass Vaishravana or Kuvera. And so he, Sumali, sent his daughter to the ashram of Vaishravana to propose to him that this daughter, unmarried girl, Kaikashi, be accepted as his wife. So it's a very detailed explanation, but because of time, Kaikashi went to his ashram. She stood very humbly, very meekly, looking down, not looking directly at the sage. And he asked why she had come, and she said, "You're all-knowing, you know why I've come." And he responded, I'll accept you as a wife. However, you've come at an inauspicious time, and therefore the sons that will be born of you will be Rakshasas. And she said, "Oh no, I don't want sons like that." And he said, "Well, a concession is your youngest son will be very famous as a pious man." So you see below, here's the 4 sons. The eldest firstborn son was Dasagriva, who later became Ravana. And there were 2 other brothers, Kumbhakarna and Vibhisana. And Shurpanakha was the 4th child of this combination of these 2. That the 2 is Kaikashi, that's his mother, Ravana's mother, and Vishrava. So Vishrava was a great Brahmin, and so when Dasagriva was young, he also studied the Vedas, as did Kumbhakarna. He knew the Vedas and the codes of the Vedas, but Vibhishan had special interest. Let's just see. Here's what Vishrava said to his prospective wife, Kaikashi. "The youngest son will become famous as a pious man." So when the young 3 boys became old enough to go to the forest and engage in austerities to please Brahma, we know what Ravana's request was. And Kumbhakarna's request was that he could sleep a long time. And Vibhishan's request was that he would become qualified to be a great devotee of the Lord and undisturbed. As a young man, he engaged in study. And here's what Brahma said to Vibhishan. "You may accept the benediction from me according to your desire." So Kumbhakarna wanted, Ravana wanted. Here's what Vibhishan, straight from Valmiki Ramayana. "My dear Lord, since you are pleased with me, the goal of my life has already been achieved. My only wish is that my mind may always remain steadily fixed upon the path of virtue, even amidst the greatest of difficulties." And sure enough, he had great difficulties, being the younger brother of Ravana. But the reason for presenting all of this preliminary is we don't hear about Vibhishan until much later, but the ground has been set that he'll become famous as a pious man. He engaged himself in the natural proclivity of studying the Vedas, and he wanted, his one desire was to become fixed upon the path of virtue, even amidst the greatest of difficulties. He was a devotee. When he was engaged in the service of his elder brother, Ravana, in Lanka, he had 4 ministers who were like him, virtuous, fixed in religious principle, quite, different than the rest of the Lanka residents. In Valmiki Ramayana, we don't hear about him until his departing the assembly of Ravan. But in one of the Ramayanas, it indicates, and here's a painting to illustrate, Hanuman met Vibhishan. Now we know that Hanuman had the capacity to assume whatever forms he chose For example, when he first met Ram and Lakshman, he was in the form of a mendicant Brahmin. So here we see him looking like a Brahmana meeting Vibhishan. And according to one particular Ramayana, this meeting, he went to Vibhishan's home after his exchange with Sita in the Ashok grove or garden, and then before he went to destroy the soldiers and wreak havoc, to give a very strong signal to Ravan and his soldiers he's in for big trouble. So it's not a primary reference from Valmiki Ramayana at least, but this is another reference to Vibhishan. And when Hanuman decided, after consoling Sita and making that part of his mission successful, he wanted to do more than that. He wanted to strike fear into the hearts of the Rakshasas, and he also wanted to do some spying, some reconnaissance work to see where everything was inside the city of Lanka, so he could refer that back to Ram for war purposes. So you know what he did. He broke off an iron rod and started smashing everything. And when that happened, generals were sent. He destroyed the generals. Thousands of Ravana soldiers then went to attack Hanuman, including the powerful demon Jambumali. And here's a very ancient painting where Hanuman is destroying Jambumali. He looks like a demon falling off his horse. So finally, Indrajit was sent with his mystic power. He was able to tie up Hanuman with ropes, but unfortunately, the Shakti weapon of Indrajit lost its power due to the ropes used by the Rakshasas. Hanuman played along with the whole routine because he wanted to come directly before Ravana, see him, assess him, so he could give that report to Ram. And after insulted in so many ways by Ravana with the plan to kill him, he spoke very, 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 very strongly, fearlessly, in repudiation of the vile activity of Ravan in kidnapping Sita, and advised him strongly to return Sita or he would be destroyed and the whole Rakshasa race would be destroyed. Hanuman was the object of Ravan's rage. He wanted to kill him. Vibhishan intervened. It said that's not according to scripture. You don't kill a messenger. You can appropriately give some punishment, but you can't kill them. And so Ravan accepted that advice by Vibhishan, and it was decided to, as you know, put his tail on fire, because monkeys have a lot of appreciation for their tail. So they soaked some rags in oil and lit the rags and tied the rags. And Hanuman then expanded his body, broke the ropes, and the rest is history. He set the entire city of Lanka on fire and rose up in the air and warned them again very soon, I'm just one monkey. How much power you see in me, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands, unlimited numbers of powerful soldiers like me, and your city will all be destroyed. There's a nice painting I like. He's sitting by the side of the sea, looking at the emblazed capital city of Lanka. Looks like he's got his tail dangling in the edge of the water there, cooling out before he goes back to inform Ram of what has happened and his finding Sita and the whole story. So after Hanuman leaves, we find Vibhishan coming into the picture again, because it caught Ravana and all the Rakshasas by complete surprise. So he called his ministers to seek their advice. And what did the ministers do? Well, they gave bad advice. Their first was they eulogized their strength You see up at the top of this very old painting, that's Ravana with his so many arms and heads, his ministers before him, and, different features of the painting are showing different things, Rakshasas here and there. So they said, no worries, we'll take care of everything. In the midst of all of this, the maternal grandfather, so maternal means his mother's father, Malyavan, entered into the assembly and gave advice, similar advice as Hanuman had done, that he should return Sita to Ram, and this would bring an end to the whole problem that they're faced, and if not, that they would be annihilated. Ravana disregarded his words. He didn't rebuke him, but Malyavan just left the assembly, knowing what the outcome would be. Now, because of the limits of time, Vibhisana tried in this particular circumstance 3 times. At this assembly, he tried to persuade his good brother or his elder brother, Ravan, to don't take rash action, consider carefully what he's doing. If the one stroke can be done to returning Sita, then everything could be solved. Ravana dismissed the assembly and went to his chambers. Later, early the next morning, Vibhisana tried again. Vibhisana was at this time now rebuked by Ravana, and then the assembly was called during the day, and Ravana didn't like at all what Vibhisana had to say. In one version of Ramayana, he kicked him and insulted him and said, if you weren't my brother, I would slay you immediately. You're part of the enemy, and you're finished. So with that, according to Valmiki Ramayana, he, Vibhisana, had mystic power, and he just rose in the air from the assembly and left. And where did he go to? Followed by his 4 ministers, he went directly to Tirupalani, or the place where Lord Ramachandra was. By this time, Hanuman had returned, and Ram had made it to the shore of the sea. As you see in the painting, there's on the left side, there's Ram and Lakshman. In the middle, there's Vibhisana offering his obeisances, and standing behind him, looking kind of funny, those are those 4 ministers. And here and there are the Vanaras, the protectors of Ram, as if he needed protection. So now here we are with the same image you saw at the beginning. There's Vibhisana, and he had the wisdom as a administrator to not directly come before Ram. Rather, he approached the representatives of Ram, starting with Sugriva, because they greeted him, and sent them to make the request on his behalf for Ram to accept his surrender. And what did Ram do? Well, Ram did what kings do. The kings, before making a decision, they would consult their ministers. And the ministers, of course, were also soldiers, and one by one, they all had some differing opinion, as individuals will have differing opinions. Sugriva was the most suspicious and said, some very heavy things, bad things. He's a spy. He knows he's going to lose, and so he's come here because he wants to become the next king, because he's the younger brother, and it's just ambition driven, and as he's left his brother, maybe he'll leave you, and who can say, I don't trust him. And so different things were said. It's very elaborate description of what different personalities said. And everyone was silent, everyone was vocal, except when Hanuman was called upon. And Hanuman is the only one who accepted him. And he had some very simple points. Even if he's ambitious, Ram doesn't mind. Someone takes shelter of him, he'll accept him. And it's natural that he wants to be a proper king because he's a virtuous man. Then he said, I can see by his countenance. You judge a man by his face, or his mind is, the face is the index to the mind. And I can see he's virtuous. I trust him. And Ram would not like some kind of trial period or check him out or any of those things. He knows him very well. And I know my Lord Ram, and he has already accepted him. That was his conclusion. Here's another very old painting. On the left-hand side of the painting, you see Vibhisana and his 4 ministers. And on the right-hand side, you see Ram and Lakshman and a whole host of Vanaras. And it's presumably the bear there that's Jambavan. So they're ready to do whatever Ram says. In this section, Ram indicates that he's willing to accept Vibhisana's surrender. Sugriva boldly still vocalizes, well, wait, what about this and that? What about the other thing? And this very famous, celebrated statement comes in this section where Ram says, it's my eternal principle that if any living being takes shelter of me even once, saying, I am yours, then I award that person freedom from all fear. Again, it is my eternal principle that if any living being takes shelter of me even once, saying, I am yours, then I award that person freedom from all fear. Now, this statement turns out to be a very critical statement in the Sri Sampradaya, because, as many of you know, there was a dispute in the succession following Ramanujacharya whether the process of prapati, is it a one-time deal or is it an ongoing process? This is the Sharanagati question. Taking shelter even once, you receive Diksha, you take shelter once, that's it. Back to Vaikuntha, because Ram made this promise. Now he says, I will award that person freedom from all fear.